Hey folks, welcome. It's Tom Sinclair with another episode of Streaming Idiots. I'm your chief idiot today, and it's going to be interesting. So stick around. We'll have a show for you in just a sec. Hi guys, Tom Sinclair here with Streaming Idiots. Glad to have you with us this afternoon, or this evening, or this morning, no matter where you are. Interesting show today. We're actually in segment 2 of our Wednesday shows, and we're glad for those folks that stuck around for segment 2 live in the chat room. If you're watching us but you're not in the chat, come on in. And if you're watching us on YouTube, join us one Wednesday afternoon, about 3:30, something like that, Eastern Time, 8:30 London time. You can extrapolate your time from there. And we'll talk about streaming and hardware and software and all the different kinds of things that go into making a show or an event or a sporting event or a worship service or whatever it might be. A really great streaming event. One that looks like it's, hey, professionally produced. Who knows? You can do it. Today we're going to talk about blending software switchers. And we'll get to that subject. That's going to be our main subject for the day. But I did want to have a little side trip as we talked about, when it comes time to have your recorded video posted somewhere for people to watch. What are you choosing? Are you choosing, Vimeo, or are you using Ustream to stream it and then letting Ustream record it for you? Or are you doing like what I do here, where you're recording it and then you're uploading it to YouTube later, or uploading it to other places? I want to give you my argument for uploading to YouTube. And I've gotten some criticism from folks on that, because they're like, Tom, why do you want to go there? There's all sorts of other stuff there. If it's the VidBlaster show that you're uploading, they're going to be competing products there, and people will be able to see that. And when your show's over, YouTube is going to suggest them to watch other shows that may not be your content. If you upload it to Vimeo and you embed it on your own website, then you're kind of secure in that. And I understand that concept. I do. I understand that. But I also think that YouTube has a distinct advantage when it comes to spreading the word. My website for the VidBlaster show, that VidBlasterGuy.com, gets traffic, but it's a narrow niche. And somebody's going to have to be looking for me to find me. They're not going to find me if they're looking for cameras, or if they're looking for, capture cards, or they're going to have to look for software switchers or VidBlaster or something like that. And a lot of times when they look for me using those search terms, that's where they find me, is on YouTube. Because over the last year and a half or so, we've been able to put up well over 100 videos, got well over 100,000 views from our YouTube shows, and I think that's the value. It's kind of like sitting in a rocking chair on the main street of your little town. You're going to see everybody that passes by, and they're going to see you. And being in YouTube is the choice, I think, for that reason. Yes, they're going to see your competition. Yes, they might see something better than what you're doing. But hey, if that's the case, then you need to improve yours. That's pretty simple. Or at least be willing to take your place if you're not going to be the best. If you're going to be the third best, then accept you're going to be third best. I like being out there where people can find me and where people can compare, because I know that this show is not the best show you're going to find. I'm hoping that it's going to be a place where you're going to get some good, solid information from a real person that does this streaming, as opposed to somebody that set up for a company and doing it as part of their product service, so they're not going to tell you all the foibles and the holes or the soft spots in their product. Here we want to do full disclosure, because the folks that are buying software from me or buying hardware from me, I want it to work the way they expect it to work. I want them to understand what they're getting up front. And a great way to understand is to understand the strengths and weaknesses of other products. So if somebody's going to consider, for example, VidBlaster, then they probably ought to consider Wirecast and vMix and some of the others too, because what they're doing might lend itself to one of the other products for one reason or another. I don't think so, but sometimes that's the case, and people need to be satisfied. I think they need to be pleased and feel like they made a good, solid decision based on all the available info. And I suspect I lose customers that way. But I suspect those folks are more happier in the long run because they've made a choice that they think is a good one for themselves. And that's really my goal in the long run. I really don't want somebody to buy something from me because they feel pressured to and they just couldn't say no. I'd rather them buy a competitive product and do well with that than buy a product from me and not do well with it. That's just that's the right way to do it, I think. So I like to be found on YouTube because lots of people are looking there. Well, I mean, what is it, like the number 3 or number 4 search engine in the world is YouTube? People go there. I mean, when I want to know the answer to a question, I'll go to YouTube almost as quickly as I will go to Google in order to find it. And a lot of times when I go to Google, I'm finding YouTube videos as some of the suggested results. So if you're on the table about what to do with your show so far as video on demand is concerned, then I would suggest that go ahead and upload them to YouTube. You know, if you want to put it on your website and have it streamed through, you know, whatever paid service you're using or whatever free service you've got, by all means do that. But put it out there where people are going to find it. Put it in their path. It's like standing in the middle of the street with a spotlight on you saying, "Hey, here I am." At least that's been my experience. So that's my little diatribe about why we post to YouTube. We go where the people are. We go where the people are. Now, interesting subject, somewhat controversial, you might think. Blending software. Blending software. All right, full disclosure. This show today is being produced, switched with VidBlaster Broadcast Edition version 3.22, which is a beta. I'm a VidBlaster reseller. This program is being recorded by Wirecast version 4. This program is being streamed, encoded and streamed by Wirecast version 4. Why in the world, Tom, would you want to combine softwares? Well, let me tell you. Here's my reasoning. VidBlaster uses Flash Media Live Encoder as its encoder and as its streamer. I mean, the VidBlaster has a streamer built into it, but the streamer requires Flash Media Live Encoder behind the scenes to work, in the same way that vMix requires Flash Media Live Encoder behind the scenes to stream. Flash Media Live Encoder is a great encoder, but if you're trying to do a lot of things, remember this is one guy, one PC territory that I'm in. If you're trying to do a lot of things with one single PC, you want to be jealous about your CPU cycles. If you've got a limited internet connection, you want to be jealous about your bandwidth. But in my case, I'm jealous about my CPU cycles. So I'm always looking for a way to use less CPU so that I can do more with other things. It's kind of like, you know, if you're going to the movies and the cost of the ticket is $20 and all you've got is $25, you're not going to be able to buy a lot of popcorn and candy bars and sodas. But if the movie's only $12, hey, now you've got $13 left over to spend on soda and candy and all that other crud that'll rot out your teeth and make you fat. Well, that's my theory. I want to have rotten teeth and be fat. I mean, not really, but you know what I'm saying. I want to have the choice. I want to have the choice to be able to do all those other things rather than burn up all my CPU cycles on encoding, because I think encoding is a big part of the process. So I was looking not to ditch VidBlaster, but to ditch Flash Media Live Encoder, and was kind enough, Stephen Haywood, with the Tech Buzz, the techbuzz.net, had a copy of Wirecast that he could give to me, and I appreciate that, Stephen. It's version 4. We haven't upgraded to version 5 yet, but I understand version 5 has got some definite benefits. And so what we're doing is we're taking the output from VidBlaster, the video output from VidBlaster, and we're sending that over to Wirecast on the same PC, I might add. VidBlaster is outputting it as VidBlaster's VVD through the output module, and Wirecast sees the VidBlaster VVD as a camera source. So we're bringing the camera source in to Wirecast like that, and then Wirecast we told Wirecast to go to the mixer and get your audio. So Wirecast is going over to the mixer to get the audio, and it's combining the audio with the video, and it's streaming it. Now Wirecast currently is set up to stream 2 separate streams. One stream is a stream to, well, actually both streams go to Dacast, D-A-C-A-S-T, Dacast.com, who is our internet, our CDN, content delivery network. I think we pay them $20 a month, something like that, and they give us more, gigabytes of bandwidth than we can possibly use, and in fact it rolls over from month to month. So if you'd like some, I'll loan you some of mine. And so Wirecast encodes it and streams it and allows it to stream to Dacast in 2 different places. One is it streams to Dacast Flash Media Server, which is our standard definition 480 feed, 480p, 30 frames a second. And the second is Dacast's HTML5 service, which actually gets re-encoded once it gets to Dacast. And since it's re-encoded, it is visible and hearable by Apple devices, so your iPhone, your iPad, whatever. And in fact, we have folks that watch us pretty much exclusively on their iPad using that iOS feed. That particular feed right now, I think, has got a max resolution of 144. It's not very high resolution, and that's done intentionally because we want these folks, if they're using their data on their phone or their iPad to watch the show, we don't want to burn up all their data with high resolution because, this face is not worth high resolution. I mean, that's the bottom line. We're not doing things that require high resolution, at least not at this point. So, and certainly 144, it's not even standard definition. It would not be even considered standard resolution. But it is hearable and it is watchable at that resolution. Still 30 frames a second and still a pretty decent bit rate for the audio, so the audio is good. And the intent is that we can use Wirecast to stream to both of those, at the same time. And so it really, since it's not a matter of taking the same feed and re-encoding it at multiple bit rates or multiple resolutions, it's actually 2 separate feeds, and Wirecast can handle both of those simultaneously and encode both of those in less CPU cycles than what it took Flash Media Live Encoder to encode and stream our 480 stream previously. So we picked up a net savings in terms of CPU cycles, plus we added the ability to have this extra feed, so we increased our audience, or at least the possibility for our audience. And I know there's several folks that watch us live that way. Now this is only for the live feed, obviously. YouTube does a great job of making our show and all shows available at different bit rates. And so I think you can go on this show from 144 up to 480. There have been some occasions where we've streamed 720 And a lot of times when we post our pre-recorded demos, we record those at 720 because we're not streaming them simultaneously. We can record them at a higher bit rate and then upload them later. So that's some of the background on that for us. Previously, we had used the recorder in VidBlaster to do the recording, and I wanted to experiment and see, how is Wirecast going to do with the very same thing. If we were to set up Wirecast to record the same specs basically that VidBlaster would, how will that work? And I'm kind of still in the middle of that experiment right now, and actually this segment is being recorded with Wirecast. Why do I do what I do? It doesn't make sense. Actually, I can tell you I've started in the middle of the story. We are broadcasting this at 480, but we are recording it at 720. But we're producing it at 480. So it's kind of like, why would you record it at 720 when you're producing it at 480? I can understand streaming at 480, but why would you want to record a stream at a higher resolution than what you actually are producing? And that's because I was actually playing with it earlier today, and at the last minute decided to stream and to produce and stream at 480, and didn't have time to come back and adjust the recording. But it does make for an interesting result, because you would think that a 720p, 30 frames a second, a 720 recording would require more CPU power than a 480 recording. That would make sense to me. 720 is probably twice as big, 2.5 times as big. Probably depends on your bit rate, it should require more CPU cycles. What I'm finding is that recording at 480 in VidBlaster versus recording 480 but at 720 in Wirecast, Wirecast uses less CPU. So currently, the way this is set up is that VidBlaster is producing at 480, Wirecast is streaming at 480 and recording at 720, and CPU usage varies from 58 to 63 to 68. Staying below 75 is kind of that magic number for me. When it gets above 75, gets into the 80s, that's when I think you can really get yourself into some trouble with dropping frames and having poor resolution or poor frame rate. Or in some cases, it's not that it drops frames, it just goes to a lower frame rate. It depends on what's set up to do what in those cases. I know with Flash Media Live Encoder, if you run that separately, you have the option to drop frames or to buffer. And I'm not sure how that's set up if you're streaming with VidBlaster and you don't have control over Flash Media Live Encoder in that sense. I'm not sure exactly which choice it makes for you there. And I'm not sure what the choice Wirecast makes either, if it's having trouble. But in this case, it doesn't appear to be having trouble. So we're using Wirecast to stream a 144p stream, a 480p stream, and record a 720p recording. Again, it's not going to be 720 because it's 480, but it probably is using more CPU to record 720 than it would if it was 480. Boy, that's confusing. Sorry, I really butchered that. Suffice to say, I'm pretty pleased with this combination. And you say, well, Tom, you're a VidBlaster guy. Why would you use Wirecast? Well, I'm a results guy. I want to see the best results. And I'm also my client's guy. If a client comes to me and he wants a particular outcome, that's what I want to help him get. And if I have to use a different product than my favorite product to give him to help him get the outcome he wants, well, that's what I want to do, because I want to meet the needs of my client. I mean, that's the goal. My goal is not to sell a specific product and push a product and push, but rather to help folks get their needs met. And I think in the long run, that's the best for everybody. That's the way it ought to be. So, streaming and recording with Wirecast, producing with VidBlaster. Now, VidBlaster, I think, is tops in terms of its ability to be user-friendly, especially beginner-friendly, but to be user-friendly in terms of operating and producing. Right now I've got, I won't count them, but I probably got 30 VidBlaster modules in front of me on my 24-inch monitor. Over to my right, I've got Wirecast running on a 20-inch monitor, and over my left, I've got Chatwing, Chat Room, and Twitter running on another 20-inch monitor. If you're asking, oh, there's a good question in the chat room, I'll answer in just a second. But generally, I don't get too much time to look at that stuff. I'm a one-man show. I can't be everywhere all at once. But the idea is that VidBlaster, and perhaps because it's more familiar, VidBlaster gives me easy access to what I need to do so far as producing this show. And again, a lot of that probably has to do with familiarity, but I like being able to put the VidBlaster modules where I want them to be, where I would feel like they should be. Again, I'm not coming from a video background. I'm not coming from a TV background. I'm just thinking about, you know, what's comfortable for me. How do I want to do it? I want to have my certain modules right up here and certain other modules right up here, because this is a different part of the show. And then when I get to this part of the show is when I look at this bank of modules, and then I've got this bank of modules for pre-shows. And that's kind of the way it works for me. And if it works differently for you, that's the beauty of VidBlaster, is you can put it anywhere you want to. Wirecast and vMix, to some extent, are not quite as flexible. Their program monitor and their preview monitor are pretty well fixed in dominating most of the screen real estate, and the modules, as you were, are kind of in a section below, kind of a lower third section below. And we'll do a walkthrough on vMix and a walkthrough on Wirecast on a future show. Yeah, and interesting to note, full disclosure, I'm a vMix reseller as well, and I've got an application in for Wirecast. Again, that's my idea, is that I want to be able to meet my customers' needs in the way that I think is very best for them. And sometimes, rarely, VidBlaster is not the perfect solution. My guess is if you had a super huge budget and you were convinced that you wanted a software switcher, you would probably buy one of each. And depending on what you were doing and how you were doing it, you might use them in combination with each other. I think Wirecast and vMix are, at least from my perspective, are a lot more like each other than they're like VidBlaster. Although vMix and VidBlaster both use Flash Media Live Encoder to do their streaming, whereas Wirecast has who knows what as its encoder, something that they've created that obviously is doing great work with not a lot of CPU cycles. And as I learn more about vMix and Wirecast, I can kind of compare and contrast them, and have them and probably be more accurate. Somebody asked just a minute ago, running both programs simultaneously uses less CPU. Yes. Can you believe that? Wirecast seems to be pretty light on the CPU. Let's see if I can see what it's using right now. Let's see, Wirecast at, let's hold on, it keeps jumping around. Yeah, Wirecast is going between 25 and 30%, keeping in mind that it's recording and streaming. And VidBlaster is going at 23 to 30%. Yeah, and those are really the only, other than some system stuff. That's and Chrome, I guess, has got a little bit. Chrome's got 1 to 2% for the two windows that I've got up in Chrome. All right, let's see. Somebody else has taken issue with me here on something I said. This is not so true. You can change the size of the monitors. Yeah, that's true. And there is a multi-view, and I've played with the multi-view, and that's true. But it's all programmed. You know, you've got what they want you to have. With VidBlaster, you can put modules on top of modules. You can hide them. You can pull them off the screen. You can stack them. You can collapse them. VidBlaster, from a GUI standpoint, from a graphic user's interface standpoint, I think VidBlaster is all over the others. Now, I'm not a guy that comes from a TV or broadcasting background. I'm not expecting to see what I see when I walk into a TV truck or when I walk into a broadcast control room, where I'm going to see a flood of monitors like what's on the back there. Then I'm going to see a preview monitor that's my next shot, and then a program monitor that's my current shot. It's not like that. And the beauty is, I think, how can I best put this? The future of internet broadcasting is going to become more and more decentralized. More and more people like me and like you are going to be broadcasting their community events, their kids' soccer games, their church services, their whatever. Their audiences are not going to be huge most of the time. They're going to be audiences of, 10 to 100 would be my guess. And these are going to be, these streamers, these internet broadcasters are not going to be coming from a TV background. They're going to be coming from a Tom Sinclair background, a regular guy background. And I think VidBlaster has got the most to bring to the table with its interface as a result. Because it's like, wow, you want to make that camera turn on? Take your mouse up there and click it, and the camera comes on. And suddenly that's in the program window. Hey, that's pretty cool. That works. You want to make an overlay happen? You want to turn an overlay off? Click the overlay module, and the overlay goes off. Click the overlay module, and the overlay comes back on again. If you want to make the player stop playing, what's going on behind me is a player, a video that's set to loop. If I want to make that stop, I press the stop button on it, and it stops. Want it to start again? Press the play button, and it plays. If I want that to be the only thing going, I just press it, and I'm gone, and that's the video. I don't want to be gone, so I'll come back. It's a joy to me to be able to engage this discussion, and to be able to engage it as somebody who's becoming more and more familiar with some of the other products and can appreciate the other product's strengths. But the days of let me say this very carefully. The days where you can be 100% dedicated to a product, promoting it with all your heart and ignoring its shortcomings, I don't think those are good days, the fanboy days. I think we want to have the, hey, I'm looking out for everybody days, where people are saying, yeah, if the emperor has no clothes, he has no clothes. Let's call a spade, and let's be truthful and honest about it. And in the meantime, everybody advances. The products that have shortcomings, maybe their shortcomings finally get talked about, and their developers decide to do something about those shortcomings because they don't have a bunch of fanboys out there kind of covering for them and diverting attention away from the deficiencies in the product. It's going to be an interesting discussion, and I think with what I see is the three players in software right now, VidBlaster and Wirecast and vMix, it's going to be a great time. The worst time is when you have one product and there's no competition. And so there's no real push to improve because you're the only choice. It's the old days of back when I was in college in the 70s, there was one phone service. And I got one phone call a week from home because I was away at school. and I think it was $1.50 a minute or something ridiculous like that. And so, a 5-minute phone call was, $7.50. You couldn't call your girlfriend for very much. But when AT&T got broken up and suddenly there was competition in the phone service, prices dropped. People will say, oh, well, I'm not getting as good a service. I dispute that. Maybe if you're going with the absolute budget product, you're not getting as good a service, but I think you're getting a better rate for the same service or better service. And I think the same is true with software switchers. The fact that we've got 3, and there may be others. If I'm shortchanging or ignoring your product, please let me know. I'd be happy to take a look. But we've got 3 major players in the market right now, and I think they're doing a good job of pushing each other. There are features that Wirecast has that the others don't, features that vMix has that the others don't. One feature that I love in vMix, and I can't wait to try it for a show one day, is vMix. And it's seemingly simple. vMix has the ability to do a scrolling ticker across the bottom. Hey, now that's pretty cool. And it's not an add-in piece of software that's screen captured. VidBlaster will do that. You can get separate software called Text Ticker and capture it using a screen capture, and then crop it and add it in as a picture-in-picture, a couple different processes. But it's not really a built-in feature in VidBlaster. Is that a huge feature? No. It's a nice feature. It's a feature you would use on occasion, I would imagine. But it's a strength of vMix. A strength of Wirecast is certainly the encoding process that it's using. And I haven't even upgraded to Wirecast 5 yet. I suspect when I do that I'll notice that there's even more CPU savings. My good friend Amnon Nissan with Nissan Communications, he's the one that produces the Computers 2K Now on Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. Eastern. He and Mike Phillips and a couple other guys get together and talk tech. I tease them because it's a bunch of old guys talking tech, but these old guys know their tech stuff. That's Sunday mornings, 9 a.m. Computers 2K, the initial, the numeral 2, computers2know.com. And it's an interesting story behind that show, but he uses VidBlaster to produce it, but he uses Wirecast 5 to stream it. How about that? And he's using more than one computer, so that's, and I think he's using Skype on one computer, and he's broadcasting it, streaming it, streaming audio over one computer, and then streaming video over another. Quite interesting. So it's going to be a lot of fun. The next year, and certainly the next few years, if you're following this industry closely, are really going to be a lot of fun as different products compete. And here's another good example of the competition. New Tech TriCaster, basically a custom bundled hardware/software solution, has felt the pressure because they've put out a New Tech TriCaster 40 that's priced at $5,000 or $6,000, whereas the cheapest New Tech before that was probably well over 10, and if you wanted to do a lot of fancy stuff with it, it was going to be 25,000. And now they're kind of coming down and feeling some competition from the software switcher, where you can buy the software for, VidBlaster's $195 for the basic version, or Wirecast is $1,000 for their top version. VidBlaster's $2,000 for its top version, and you put a pretty beefy PC with that. I've built quite a few of these beefy PCs, and they're just blazers. If you're interested in that, shoot me a note, Tom at that VidBlaster Guy. Tom at streamingidiots.com, and we can talk custom PCs. But that's definitely taken a bite out of the New Tech TriCaster market. More and more schools are beginning to look beyond TriCaster for their TV production and are looking at software switchers because of the cost. They can bring somebody in, or they can bring in a PC with this software running and do it a heck of a lot cheaper than they can with a TriCaster, using the same cameras, the same other video equipment, and they're putting it in a student's hands, and who knows what they'll do next. Let's see, what else? trying to follow the chat room here while I'm looking at that. And I guess I'm going to have to look at it more closely. It's a lot to look at, and I don't want to leave you waiting. Well, that's my little diatribe about the future of software switchers and the benefits of different ones. If you were interested in purchasing any of these, shoot me a note. Be happy to chat with you about it. And we can kind of find out what your needs are for the moment, what your needs are in the future, and which one might fit you best long term. If you're interested in a custom PC for running any or all of this, let me know, and we can build one for you, or certainly give you some good specs to go with. What else can I do with you? Oh yeah, we do all the tech support on everything we sell, software and hardware. Trying to think. Golly, that's it. Do want to give a shout out to Sean Aronson of the St. Paul Saints AA baseball team in St. Paul, Minnesota, who is going to be a new VidBlaster guy here before too long and broadcast the St. Paul Saints. So that's it. That's it. Good things. This is a good day. I mean, we're going to look back on these kind of days in the future, and we're going to say, boy, those were exciting days where it was the wild, wild west, where it was still being explored and territory was being staked out, and products were shifting and moving and developing, and the feature set was not yet fixed. You know, if you look at word processing now, the feature set is fixed. If you look at spreadsheets like Excel and competitors, the feature set is pretty well fixed. There might be a tweak here or there, but nothing exciting like what's going on in the software switcher world. This is a good time to be around and be in this. If I can help you, holler to me. Otherwise, check us out on YouTube, and we'll see you next week, Wednesday afternoons, 3:30ish Eastern, something like that. We come on right after that VidBlaster guy. Delighted to have you with us. Take care. If you're watching it live, hang on just a second, and I'll try to answer some of your questions in the chat. Didn't have time to get to them while we're new, and we can have great discussions if we disagree. How about that? So let's see if we can take us out with a little bit of theme music here, and we'll catch you next time.